Alright, so now we're done with the online races from now on, and I think we can now show off the final thing for the entirety of this Let's Play, and yes, we're about to be showing off the online battle mode, which, to be expected, we've already mentioned about this before already, but this time around though, we're about to be competing battle mode during new forms of across the entire world. So, let's go ahead and select, no matter what though, let me just go ahead and just say this right now, we have not selected Waluigi yet, so even then, and also as you can clearly see on screen right now, we managed to unlock this particular Kart part, which appears to be by the forms of Wild Wiggler, so even then, we'll go ahead and use the bike combination for that specific Kart's customization parts, and then we can also manage to put up with these little sleek tires and stuff. Actually, no matter what though, let me just go ahead and switch over to the P-Wing, and as well as those specific tires, and the Wario Kite as in a glider. So, hopefully we can able to, well, compete against with somebody else during an online match for the forms of, well, specifically the battle mode or what have you. But the moment right now, Sylvester, though, is the fact that we need to wait for a few moments' notice because, yes, like the forms of how it does it in, you know, back in Mario Kart Wii, as well as Mario Kart 7, there are a few times, though, that we need to wait for a certain amount of time before you start up the actual race and all that stuff, or the actual battle, if you to be more precise with, because as you can see, that the Renegades Roundup mode is actually on, and apparently wait for about 2 minutes before the actual match will be finished, and then we can able to jump right in to the actual online battle mode itself. So, there's not much else I can really say about this, honestly, although you can able to actually switch between those different camera angles in between these different players by simply pressing the A button. So even then, yeah, it feels remarkably similar to the forms of changing the actual camera angles or the actual character angles during the forms of in Mario Kart Wii by simply pressing the 2 button if you're able to use the Wii wheel. And as well as from that, you can also press the A button to you know, assuming if you're using the classic controller or the GameCube controller, which, I know it's been such a long time since we actually managed to play through, you know, online mode in journey forms of Mario Kart Wii back in the day, but of course, you know, that particular thing is no longer with us anymore just because, you know, Nintendo Wi-Fi connection is pretty much dead, so... But hopefully though, we've already got about a minute left before we're able to get started with the actual battle mode itself. So, you know, not much else to really have a commented on it. So, yeah. And today's day is the forms of the 8th December for this point today. There's one thing I totally forgot to mention about this up until now. And also that we were originally trying to able to... commentating on the forms of the actual introduction with the actual introduction for that video, that we simply always use the catchphrase saying like, hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sylvester the Cat, etc. But as for this point in time, we're probably not going to do that for the sake of this video, just because, well, obviously that we almost nearly towards the end of this Let's Play for this point and onwards, and also to top it off, actually, is the fact that, well, hopefully though, that Mario will able to actually finish, you know, continue with the rest of the actual uploading schedules for Mario Odyssey, and hopefully in the rare occasions that, well, I'm also able to actually do a brief on Kingdom Hearts Final Mix for a little bit. Well, not all of the parts, mind you, just because of time constraints and all that stuff, so I must point that out right away, but yet, then again, it's just a little bit of a preference anyway, so... Anyways, let's begin with the Battle Stadium to top it off, or to start things off anyway, and hopefully though, the actual battle modes will be pretty much randomized each time, so even then though we can able to expect what battle modes we're going to be dealing with first, so even then though we'll see what happens there. So something's worth mentioning though is the fact that you can also just manage to able to actually select the comments, which comments you're going to be selecting through with all these races in mind, so you can at least you can able to do that. Yeah, but I digress. So anyways, we got ourselves Lunar Colony in the forms of coin runners. So, because I can tell for that specific icon on that bottom right corner, as well as that specific loading transmission right here. So, Hopefully we'll collect some more coins exponentially though, but simply to say though is the fact that I'm pretty sure that you don't collect coins during battle mode, although technically speaking you will be, but the only thing you can able to noticing this is the fact that it will take a while to able to collect certain amount of coins during the forms of you know, the actual process to able to grab some of these parts of the actual card customization options and all that stuff. Like, specifically the golden glider, that the returning glider from ever since in Mario Kart 7. And in order to actually unlock that particular glider is that, well, you need to collect a certain amount of coins. Specifically, I think the only maximum coins you need to get up to is 1,000 basically. So when you're with that, then you get yourselves a gold glider. And as far as the golden standard cards, it's very simple and self-explanatory. Basically, you just have to like get the 1-star ranking in junior forms of the mirrored Grand Prix mode and stuff like that. And finally, the gold tires themselves is by simply able to beat all the ghost staff ghost data in junior forms of every single courses, including DLC courses. So something to worth keep that in mind, and we'll just have to point that out straight away, just in case if you guys have not knowing of how to unlock certain items, or in this case for this method though, any sort of card combination parts and all that stuff. Although we'll eventually able to actually play this from time to time in our own time, so that way we can able to do certain completionists and all that stuff. But the only thing to keep in mind though is the fact that well, you know, sometimes though trying to able to grind for more coins and all that stuff can be like some sort of a busy work, especially if you ever played the Wii U version on one hand. And well, luckily though, on the Switch version, at least you can able to actually just to take it on the go, as I mentioned earlier. But it's just a matter of the forms of how the fact that how much time you can able to, well, just take some time into able to actually grab some coins and all that stuff. So yeah, something worth mentioning right away though, since how the fact that, well, we've already got about I would say classify for saying 11 days to, I can't speak today for this point, folks, I do apologize. Because basically we've already got ourselves 4 more days to go until the Game Awards is about to be hosting. So even then, I don't think we can able to mentioning that during the forms of the final video for Mario Kart 8 in general. But because of this, that as we mentioned this before already, that the entire Let's Play of this will be finished. So even then, and also during the forms of that specific time, that we might actually get ourselves, according to the forms of some other rumors or something like that, I think we might possibly get ourselves the forms of 10 new announcement games or something like that. Well, I don't know. For instance, maybe we can get the actual new footage of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, or even especially noticeable in the forms of Metroid Prime 4, even certain surprises every once in a while though. But then again, we'll let Mario will mention more on that in junior forms of his Let's Play of Super Mario Odyssey when it comes to the few final videos for that specific time. So even then, we can able to at least accept that. Yeah, I think it's probably true for that regard, Sylvester. It probably gets a little bit more regarding for that specific stuff. Although, tomorrow speaking, is the fact that, you know, obviously Mario will get back into Super Mario Odyssey tomorrow to do some more continuation of, you know, Luigi's Bloom World and all that stuff. So hopefully he'll able to actually completely done with, you know, every single part of that specific stuff. So yeah, let's talk about the forms of some more stuff during the forms of the Mario Kart toy recently. And the fact of the matter is though, is the fact that, as we mentioned this before already, that we actually got ourselves another version of Koopa Troopa, but this time around though, it's actually based off from, specifically, Super Mario Odyssey for the forms of Koopa Free Running, Racer, which is pretty cool though, even then though it kind of feels a bit odd, admittedly, because even then though, normally we can't take control of those Koopa Free Running Racers during the forms of Super Mario Odyssey, because that's the part of the missions and all that stuff. And also that could be same applies for, you know, the forms of, I would say in a Paris tour or something like that we got ourselves, specifically, the Pit Stop Toad, where basically we can't play as one of those Pit Stop Toads, because basically they're just a part of the forms of the NPCs, during the forms of the actual main menus or something like that, or even the entirety of the background and stuff like that, so. And of course, as you can see on screen right now, we are now on to Shine Thief in new forms of Battle Course 1. So, someone must have got it straight away. But anyway though, aside from everything else though, is that, well, obviously we mentioned this before already, that we actually got ourselves 2 new characters, but they're all just like cosmetic, different costume changes here and there. Stuff like, for instance, there is actually the forms of a gift shopper Daisy, which kind of reminds me like she was having a fun time on Christmas time. I think that's what it's usually based on. And also, during the forms of Waluigi's case, he actually becomes himself his bus driver, which is pretty cool. So even then though, the only costume he's left now is of course maybe Luigi, and especially noticeable with Wario. But I really don't know about Yoshi though, because I'm pretty sure in Mario Kart 8 / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is that basically we got ourselves multicolored Yoshis basically, and also we got ourselves a Black Shy Guy during the forms of the Winter Tour from the previous tour that we've had. Speaking of which actually, is the fact that we pretty much almost at the halfway point in the forms of London Tour so far, when it comes to the forms of Mario Kart Tour so far. So hopefully we'll able to see what's up next during the future though, but then again, we'll let Mario mention more on that and during the forms of— What?! How does that even count? We didn't snack a Shine Sprite every time whenever we decide to ram into those opponents. Oh jeez, we'll have to be able to actually just try to accept that. Although, it's gonna make this a little bit difficult and tricky to be able to obtain a Shine Sprites at this point, because obviously most of these players are obviously trying to able to go after it, including like using the actual items at the same time too. So hopefully we can able to bust it out for this part. Although sometimes though, trying to able to actually angle up with these certain items and all that stuff, such as the fire flowers or something, it might be really difficult to use it from. Unless we can able to use the lightning for ever since during the forms of Mario Kart DS counterparts. Oh, really? Let's just back up a little bit, and someone else might actually just stole a Shine Sprite. And I don't know whose is who, but even then we'll have to drive around for a little bit, just to see if who actually got ourselves the, okay, so looks like someone else has got the Shine Sprite now, so— Gee, I wonder what the actual opponent itself might actually be, but even then we'll have to, like, drive forward a little bit so that we can able to discover who exactly got that particular Shine Sprite in theory, so— unless if we could potentially try to use the actual red shell, but honestly I think the bikes themselves might be pretty difficult in battle mode sometimes, because sometimes we always come up to a wall. Oh, it's the actual me. Oh, I see how it goes. And I get the strong feeling we're probably not going to catch up because, oh man, he is way too good at it. And plus because of the fact that I don't think we can able to catch up to him though, I don't think. But regardless of such though, at least we got ourselves 1 point at least, which is a little bit better than the forms of how it does it when we, you know, dealing around with the coin runners and stuff. Because in coin runners mode, when we did manage to done that, then we haven't got a single point at all. But regardless of such though, at least we managed able to go through all that. So, let's go ahead and select one of those Koopalings or what have you. Let's go for Molten Koopa Jr. And we'll go for the actual, the bikes themselves, because again, with heavyweight class, it will be very good with bikes in this game, to me though. But, aside from everything else though, that's as far as we can say about it. So let's go for Dragon Palace, and yeah, it looks like I think we can guarantee we can able to jump right in to the actual, Dragon Palace itself. So, hopefully that makes it better for this point. Yeah, remember the forms of that specific results screen as you can see right there? Every now and then now, it's the fact that one of those players is actually wearing a crown, which is pretty cool though, but it only appears on the actual Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Compared to the Wii U version, they don't simply wear the crown at all, because instead, we actually get ourselves the forms of just nothing, apart from, you know, your racing gear and stuff like that. So speaking of Dragon Powers, here we go onto that specific stage, but this time around, we're now dealing with the balloon battle. Hopefully we can able to win for this throughout. I'm not exactly sure, just because, well, then again, some of these opponents can be pretty much a tougher, aggressive kind of behavior or something like that. But I digress. So, speaking of games actually, it's the fact that, you know with the actual website called NintendoEverything.com, they actually point that out with the forms of the actual top 50 list, when it comes to video games has been out for about a decade, ever since in 2010, all the way up to 2019, or to be more specifically, 2010's era. So even then, as we mentioned this before, it actually listed up to 50 games that is usually tops ranked due to the forms of that specific ranking. So let's go with the actual list before we're able to actually just, well, I'll let Sylvester were able to actually just concentrate on this from now on, while I can simply able to actually just commentating by the forms of the top 50 best reviewed games during the forms of the actual since a decade. So even then, let's start with number 50. Number 50 goes to Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Exclusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. And we're pointing things out right away. Those reviews are based off from Metacritic. So even then, so far for that game, it's actually got up to 91% out of 100, which is pretty good. But I'm probably not going to point that out for certain other games in the list, but we'll point that out in any forms of the continuation of that list. So, number 49 actually goes to Final Fantasy 14 Shadow Beings for the PC, which is the most recent game of the Final Fantasy games on the PC at the moment. And in the forms of 48 is actually Forza Horizon 3 on Xbox One. And number 47 is Bayonetta 2 for the Wii U back in 2014. Despite we already got that game on the Switch at this point, but I don't know. I think probably the Wii U version does have a lot of like preference on the forms of how the fact that whenever that game first came out on the Wii U, and chances are is the fact that I'm pretty sure the Wii U version got a little bit higher for that rank. But that I digress. So even then, and usually, relatively speaking, is the fact that between, Dragon Quest XI's as well as Final Fantasy 14 Shadow Beings and Forza Horizon 3 and Bayonetta 2, those games so far got themselves 91 out of 100, which is good. And number 46 is the forms of Overwatch for the PC, and that game also received 91% out of 100, which is really good. And 45 is Little Big Planet 2 for the PlayStation 3, and that game also has 91 points out of 100. And number 44 on the list is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Blood and Wine for the PC version in 2016, and that game receives specifically 92% out of 100, which is also a very good score. And as you can tell on screen right now, that Sylvester actually got himself just only 3 points, which is, well, not by much, but at least is way more better than the forms of how it does on the previous 2 matches, that's for sure. Yeah, just because of our fact that I was able to actually utilize the items very, like, carelessly and stuff like that. Let me go ahead and switch now to, let's just go for the baby, baby characters now, starting with Baby Mario, and we'll obviously go for the actual carts rather than bikes because, well, at the end of the day, those that small weight classes aren't very good when it comes to the forms of bikes handling and stuff like that. But we'll go for carts as it is, and I'll accidentally select random, but that's fine by me. But even then though, yeah, continue Sonic, while I'm simply able to drive onto the next battle course, which I think it might actually be, depending on the forms of that roulette thing actually stops. And it appears to be Luigi's Mansion in, oh yes, Bob on Blast. I've actually become pretty much an expert when it comes to the forms of that specific battle mode right there. But anyway, I digress. Continue Sonic? Oh yeah, number 43 on that specific top 50 list for the best ranking games in the entire decade. The next one is the ISICO and Shadow of the Colossus Collection on the PlayStation 3. That particular compilation actually receives 92 out of 100, which is really good as well. And number 42 on the forms of the top rankings, we have the recent game that we're playing right now, is the forms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch. And that game also receives 92 out of 100, which is really, really awesome. especially because of how the fact that we actually got ourselves a much more better battle mode than in forms of how it does it on the Wii U version, which is probably just us, our opinions anyway. So yeah, that's pretty cool though. And on number 41, we have ourselves Xenoblade Chronicles for the Nintendo Wii. Well, it did originally came out in 2010, but then later on in 2011 in our country, and then in 2012 for United States of America. And then in that particular version of the game specifically, the Wii version actually received the same score as in those two, or three rather, for those three games I mentioned earlier, and actually receives 92 points out of 100, which is also fantastic. And number 40 is Journey from the PlayStation 3, and that also receives 92 out of 100 points, which is very, very awesome. And speaking of such, number 39 is Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo Wii U. And that particular score is actually received as in 92 points, which is also very, very good. And number 38 is Divinity Original Sim 2 Definitive Edition for the PlayStation 4. And that particular game also receives 92 points out of 100. And number 37 is Fire Emblem Awakening for the 3DS. Also receives 92 points out of 100, which is really, really awesome. In fact, we might actually get that game at some point in the future though, but not now though, because at the moment right now, the pricing on that particular game on Amazon or any other shopping online websites is actually pretty pricey at the moment. But from what I've heard about that game, despite having picked it up in day one, it's actually pretty good of the actual game. In fact, we might actually pick it up though at some point, at some form or another. At least depending if the 3DS is still managed to continue supporting with. So even then, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. So yeah. Anyway, number 36 is Undertale for the PC, and that particular version specifically receives 92 points, which is also very well done. And number 35 on the list, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt for the PlayStation 4, and that also receives 92 points out of 100. And in number 34, we have Super Street Fighter 4 for the PlayStation 3 specifically because, well, they have to put all the PlayStation 3 on there just because, well, the directional pad, especially noticeable for 2D fighters and all that stuff, is actually really good when it comes to DualShock controllers and all that stuff, which I get a strong feeling for that specific stuff. Yay, I now managed to claim myself an entire win of the match by simply able to go myself 15 points, which is top-notch in Fury. Yeah, I get the idea for that. And that particular game for Super Street Fighter 4 for the PlayStation 3 actually also receives 92 points, which is really, really good in Fury as well. Number 33 spot is the Forms of Celeste on the Nintendo Switch, and that game also receives 92 points out of 100, which is also very, very cool in Fury as well. And number 32 is Bloodborne for the PlayStation 4, and that game also receives 92 points as well. And number 31 is Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception for the PlayStation 3, and that game also has, you know, the 92 points out of 100, so that's pretty good as well. Number 30 is God of War 3 for the PlayStation 3, specifically the PlayStation 3, by receiving also 92 points out of 100. And number 29 we have is Forza Horizon 4 for the Xbox One, which it did came out last year, and it also receives 92 points as well. And now we get into the forms of top number 28, which appears to be Inside from Xbox One, and that actually receives 93 points, which is also fantastic in Fury. And number 27 spot is of course Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch in the forms of, well, specifically, it actually got themselves 93 points as well. Probably the best reviewed Smash Bros. Game for a very, very long time, at least to me anyway though. And number 26 is Uncharted 4 A Thief's End, probably the best reviewed Uncharted game at the moment. And at the moment right now, they also receive 93 points as well. And number 25 goes to Rock Band 3 for the Xbox 360, also receives 93 points out of 100. Number 24 is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Wii version specifically in 2011, and that particular game also received 93 points out of 100. And at number 23, we have Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain in the forms of, well, specifically the PlayStation 4 version, and that receives 93 points as well. And number 22 is Mass Effect 3 for the Xbox 360 in 2012, and that also receives 93 points as well. And number 21 is Persona 5 for the PlayStation 4 in 2017, and that also receives 93 points out of 100. Number 20 is Persona 4 Golden for the PlayStation Vita, probably the best reviewed PlayStation Vita games that has ever been consist of right now, and that also receives 93 points as well, out of 100. Number 19 is StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty in the PC version specifically, that also receives 93 points out of 100. Number 18 is Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, because it's pretty obvious, because it's one of the best looking Wii U games that's ever been made. Although despite the fact that we still need to come back into it though in our own time, despite with the forms of our data corruption issues on our Wii U console at the moment. So, as you can tell right here, we are immediately hit back onto the forms of Lunar Colony at the moment right now. But except this time around though, we are doing the forms of Renegade Roundup, while usually I'm about to do it with the actual controlling, while Sonic is still concentrating on the actual top 50 list at the moment right now. So, oh please, 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 let me out. Please, someone, let me out. Hurry up before the actual game itself ends. Come on, baby Rosalina. Come on, baby Rosalina. Don't ever give up on me. Please, 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 please. I'm getting tired of getting stuck on a cage. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, man. That was actually pretty close for me, though. But yeah, anyway, for Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, also receives 93 points as well, out of 100 at least, so that's very, very awesome indeed. And number 17 is Divinity Original Sim 2 for the PC in 2017, and that game also receives 93% out of 100, which is also very awesome. And number 16 we have is Pac-Man Championship Edition DX for the Xbox 360 in 2010. That also receives 93 points here and there as well, which is very big deal. And number 15 we have is BioShock Infinite for the PC version, and that game receives 94 points out of 100, which is very, very cool. And number 14 we have is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D for the Nintendo 3DS, during forms of, well, specifically, 94 points out of 100. I think this is without doubt that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D might actually be the best reviewed 3DS game as of now, which is actually very impressive in theory, just because of how the fact that it usually got like a huge capabilities of the forms of the 3D effects very, very nicely, especially because of how the fact that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, alongside with Breath of the Wild, might actually be one of the best reviewed games on the Zelda series right now, which is very impressive though. Alright, so let's see, we got Sweet Sweet Kingdom as of now, and the actual battle mode choice is Coin Runners once again, so yeah, that's just the actual main part of that specific stuff. Oh yeah, where was I? Oh yeah. In number 13, we have the best Batman game, which appears to be Batman Arkham City for the Xbox 360, and that game receives 94 points out of 100, which is very impressive. And number 12 is the forms of God of War, the most recent one on the PlayStation 4, and that one receives 94 points as well. And number 11 is Portal 2 for the Xbox 360, and that actually receives 95 points, which is very impressive as well. And now we come to number top 10, where it comes to the forms of the best reviewed games during the forms of the entire decade. So even then, number 10 is Red Dead Redemption for the Xbox 360, released in 2010, and it actually receives 95 points out of 100, which is very, very good. Number 9 is The Last of Us Remastered for the PlayStation 4, and that game, or that specific version, actually receives 95 points. And similarly, Number 8 is the original The Last of Us for the PlayStation 3 that receives exactly the same score as the remastered version, which is very impressive in theory. And number 7 we have is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim for the Xbox 360, and that receives 96 points out of 100. And number 6 is the Forms of Mass Effect 2 for the Xbox 360, and that also receives 96 points here and there as well. And now into the forms of the bigger titles for the forms of that list. So number 5 is Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch. That actually receives 97 points out of 100, which is very impressive, despite with how the fact that that particular game was now in a 3rd place position when it comes to the forms of the best-selling Switch games that's ever made of right now. And, well, it still looks very impressive still, but even then I just want to classify that. So, number 4 is Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PlayStation 4 specifically, which is also a very big deal because will have to be one of the best selling games on that specific series or something like that, next to San Andreas. But then again, we haven't exactly looked upon that much in terms of Grand Theft Auto series as of now, but specifically the ones of the newer ones, or I don't know, I just get sidetracked at the moment. So, and number that Grand Theft Auto 5 also received 97 points out of 100, which I think I sort of mentioned this already. So, number 3 is Red Dead Redemption 2 for the PlayStation 4, and that also receives 97 points out of 100. And number 2 is a bit of a controversial choice for the actual rankings, because number 2 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild by receiving also 97 points here and there as well out of 100, specifically the Switch version. And finally, the best reviewed game in the entire decade, ever since Journey forms of in 2010 all the way up to 2019. The best reviewed game during the forms of the entire decade, I'm going to be recording onto the forms of Metacritic's results. That appears to be Super Mario Galaxy 2. Yes, my favorite Wii game was actually on the forms of the best reviewed games in the entire decade, which is very impressive too, just because of how the fact that still Super Mario Galaxy 2, alongside with the original Super Mario Galaxy game, is without doubt one of my favorite Nintendo Wii games I've ever played, and the best Wii games I've ever played in my whole entire life, because, well, I just simply enjoyed those games, basically. Yeah, which is pretty impressive with that specific list at the moment. So even then, yeah, well, I just don't know what to say about this point right there. So yeah, that's quite a lot of discussions I like to point for this point, guys, because I know for the fact that it's kind of like, it has a lot of huge emphasis on news, announcements, or anything like that for this point, but regardless of anything else though, we did a pretty much a good run when it comes to releasing games and all that stuff. So, anyways, enough about that. So I think we should probably discuss the final thing we'd like to talk about, and that is the final thoughts of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe / Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. So we'd like to discuss upon the forms of that specific stuff while Sylvester is still carry on doing, you know, battle modes online by simply going through Urchin Underpass with balloon battles. So even then, oh jeez, I realized that we haven't got that much players on screen right now, according to the actual map, as you can see right there. Yeah, it's really weird, but despite that, however, though, I'm presuming because of how the fact that we're actually doing pretty well at the game so far, or maybe in the forms of the online matches and all that stuff. So, yeah, things to be expected at this point. So, yeah, I guess we'll give our final thoughts of, or in this case, the actual overall opinions of this game / the forms of the Wii U version as well. I think this is easy at the end of the day, without a doubt. Alongside with the forms of Mario Kart DS, this was without a doubt my favorite Mario Kart game I've ever played. Some people seem to disagree and able to prefer Mario Kart 64 for its nostalgia, or perhaps maybe the best definitive Mario Kart experience is of course Mario Kart Wii, because of how the fact that Mario Kart Wii did manage to sell so well back in the day, that is. But despite that, however, though, I really enjoyed this game, basically. I love the visuals of the entire game, depending on which version you're going to be playing through. Either the Wii U version or the Switch version. It doesn't matter which, which version you might actually go for. I think to me though, they should definitely recommend the Switch version, just because, well, obviously, despite with the best-selling games at the moment between, let's just say, both on the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch as of now, and despite the actual game itself did manage to become the #1 when it comes to the forms of the best-selling games in between each systems, specifically the Wii U and the Switch. In the end, though, is the fact that I think the Wii U version does manage to able to lack in certain parts. Specifically, of course, the battle modes will be the actual bad thing about the Wii U version. As well as from that, the item system on the Wii U version can be downright luck-based at times. And also the actual main menu's design, at least compare that to the Switch version as of now, is actually kind of messy. But apart from those side of things though, it's pretty nice looking main menus as a result of this kinds of stuff. And also during the forms of the loading times between the Switch version and the Wii U version, I think the Switch version runs quite faster compared to the forms of how it does it on the Wii U version right now. But I digress though. That's not to say about the forms of the negative stuff. I think, to me though, the definitive version of the game will definitely have to be the Switch version because, well, obviously they actually improved upon the entire battle mode to make it a little bit more traditional as in the forms of how it does it on the Wii U version. And second is that, well, obviously the loading times has been reduced. And also another thing is the fact that they actually added in extra characters and all that stuff. The only thing is missing though is the fact that I kind of wish they actually added in more brand new tracks specifically. But apart from that though, Sonic, at least they did manage to bring back the battle courses during the battle mode and stuff like that, which I honestly felt very grateful, because even then, I'm very happy they actually listening to the forms of that specific stuff that as far as you might as well need it. And also with the forms of the introduction to the forms of the returning, the double item system makes a return from Double Dash is a very key factor to it, because obviously because of how the fact that this makes the game a little bit more easier and simple, especially noticeable make the item balancing issues can be problematic on the forms of the Wii U original version. But regardless of such though, the both versions are still fun, but I just think that the Switch version has much more of a huge emphasis on content-wise, as well as from that, way more better experience, or the definitive experience compared to the forms of the original version. So yeah, I should probably point that out right away for this point, for those of you who want to notice by this point, after we're able to finish up this entire Let's Play at this point right now. Definitely recommend the Nintendo Switch version right now. You should definitely recommend getting this, and unless if you really want to go for the Wii U version, despite with the forms of the actual disappointing battle mode, as well as from that, need to pay real money to able to actually, or in this case for this matter though, if you really want to add in some DLC content, especially noticeable if you really want to likely, you know, just trying to able to actually recommend both versions. At least it depends on what version you're going to be going for. But for me, the definitive version is obviously the Switch version, because obviously with the improved battle mode and all that stuff. Yeah, that's as far as we can say about the forms of our final thoughts of the entirety of Mario Kart 8 / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You should definitely recommend this game entirely, and wow, that ended up very quickly, don't you think? Yeah, at least we actually deserve that after able to actually winning certain matches and all that stuff. I think the Battle Stadium might be a bad choice when it comes to the forms of round gauge roundup to me though, because otherwise the match will end. So with that said, we'll quit online mode for now. Well, at least we can able to still play it on our own time. So with regional though, it's pretty much the same thing, but except the fact that you can able to focusing on the entire country and stuff like that, and you could also race against with your friends or your rivals. And the big factor about this particular online mode that makes this a pretty big deal, especially just like on the Wii U version, and that is the forms of the tournament mode, where basically you can able to actually set up your tournament rules and all that stuff, which is a pretty big deal, because obviously this is without doubt the greatest online experience of all time. There's no lag or anything like that, unlike in certain other games like for instance Super Mario Party actually has some bit of lag most of the time, and also during the forms of specifically. Oh yeah, there's the actual code right away for those of you want to participating in for Bob-omb Blast Mayhem. If you want to, guys, look it up. So even then, I'll put the links in the description below. So even then, with that being said, I think that pretty much takes care of every single part with the forms of our entire Let's Play of Mario Kart 8 / Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, don't you think? Yup, in fact, we're very impressed about the forms of the quality of this Let's Play right now, especially compared to the forms of how it does it back in 2014 and 15, despite with the amount of, delays back then. But now, we have no delays or anything like that, apart from one particular week in general, just because of Super Mario Galaxy 2 needs to wrap up for the actual Let's Play department. But apart from those side of things though, I hope you guys do enjoy this particular Let's Play, and we surely do as well. In fact, it's actually way more improvement over the forms of how it does it on the previous Let's Play of that. So yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy it. This is me, Sonic the Hedgehog, and I'm Sylvester the Cat here from the Maxi Toys. And I think next time around, when it comes to dealing with other Mario Kart Let's Plays, we might as well go back to the past by the forms of the Super Nintendo installments, the one that started it all, from Super Mario Kart. And hopefully we'll do the rest of the older Mario Kart Let's Plays here and now as well. So see you then. Ciao. Bye. So hopefully I'll need to fetch some of my chili dogs.